You miss one court date. That's it, just one. A clerk stamps a file 3 floors up. You don't feel it yet, but somewhere a judge signs a piece of paper with your name on it, a bench warrant. Cold, procedural, permanent. It doesn't expire. It doesn't forget. It just sits in a database, waiting. You think you have time. You don't. Because right now, in this exact moment, a system built by thousands of people you'll never meet just switched on. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't get bored. It has one job, find you. And it's very, very good at that job. This is what happens when you disappear every rank, every step, every mistake that gets you closer to the door slamming shut. Level 1, the no-show. It starts small. It always starts small. Maybe it's a DUI, a possession charge, a domestic dispute that got out of hand and turned into a court date you can't quite believe is real. Maybe it's something you didn't even do. A case of mistaken identity or a misunderstanding you're sure will sort itself out the moment someone actually looks at the facts. You tell yourself the court date is a formality. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later, that there will be a later, that the system has bigger problems than you. You don't go. The judge waits the mandatory grace period, usually 15 minutes, sometimes less, and when your name gets called for the 3rd time and the seat stays empty, the paperwork begins. A failure to appear, a bench warrant issued on the spot, no hearing required, no chance for you to explain that your car broke down or your alarm didn't go off or you simply forgot. It gets entered into the state's criminal database within hours, and if the underlying charge is serious enough, it syncs to the National Crime Information Center, the FBI's master database, within a day or 2, sometimes less. Right now, you're not a fugitive. Not really. You're a nuisance, a low-priority name in a stack of 10,000 other low-priority names sitting in a filing system nobody's actively working. Most bench warrants for minor offenses sit untouched for months, sometimes years, waiting for something to trigger them into relevance. A traffic stop for a busted taillight, a routine ID check at a bar, a neighbor calling the police over something completely unrelated to you. You go about your life like nothing happened. You go to work. You answer your phone when it rings. You still use your real name at the pharmacy, at the gym, at the DMV when your registration comes due. You still post photos with your face clearly visible, tagged with your location. Because in your mind, this whole thing is background noise, a paperwork problem, not a countdown. This is the version of you that thinks the problem is behind you. It isn't. It's just quiet. And quiet, in a system like this, is never the same thing as gone. Somewhere, a clerical process older than you are keeps grinding forward without your input. Warrant databases sync between county, state, and federal systems on their own schedule. No one watching, no one deciding, just automation doing what automation does. A record that means nothing to you today might mean everything the next time your name gets typed into a terminal for any reason at all. Level 2, the runner. Something changes the equation. Maybe you get a call from a bail bondsman asking questions in a tone that makes your stomach drop. Maybe a cop shows up at your door asking about something that feels too specific, too pointed to be a coincidence. Maybe you just wake up one morning and the fear that's been sitting quietly in your chest for weeks finally catches up to the denial you've been running on. You run, not dramatically. Not like the movies. You don't cross state lines in a stolen car with sirens screaming behind you, tires smoking on the interstate. You just stop showing up places. You stop answering calls from numbers you don't recognize, then calls from numbers you do recognize, then eventually calls from almost everyone. You move in with a friend, or a cousin, or someone you met 3 months ago at a job that no longer exists, someone who doesn't ask too many questions because they've got their own reasons not to. You ditch the phone that has your name attached to the plan, or at least you try to, learning too late how difficult it actually is to disappear from a system built specifically to make that nearly impossible. You start paying for everything in cash, watching the bills get thinner in your pocket week by week. You stop using your debit card for anything traceable, because somewhere in the back of your mind, a part of you that's suddenly very alert understands that every swipe, every login, every automatic bill payment is a breadcrumb leading directly back to wherever you're standing. The paranoia sets in slowly, then all at once, the way water finds every crack in a foundation. A police cruiser, 2 cars behind you on the highway, makes your hands sweat on the wheel and your foot ease off the gas without you even deciding to do it. A knock at the door at 8 in the morning stops your heart cold before you even see who it is. Before you even remember you're not expecting anyone, you start sleeping with your shoes near the bed and your keys in your pocket, just in case. Just so there's no version of tonight where you're caught flat-footed. You are, for the first time in your life, thinking like someone who has something to lose every single hour of every single day, running calculations you never used to run. Who saw me? Who might talk? What does my face look like on a camera I didn't notice? Most people who reach this rank don't stay hidden long, not because the system catches them immediately, but because hiding is exhausting in a way almost nothing else is. You can't call your mother on her birthday without a burner. You can't post the photo everyone's waiting to see. You can't be, in any real unguarded sense, on yourself, and that erosion wears people down faster than any manhunt does. You start noticing things you never noticed before. Which stores have visible cameras, which don't. Which cashiers ask for ID and which don't bother. You memorize your own new routine the way you used to memorize a work schedule, except now the stakes of forgetting are entirely different. Every decision, down to which door you walk through, becomes a small negotiation with risk. Level 3, the flagged. Your name crosses a threshold you don't even know exists. Maybe the underlying charge gets upgraded after new evidence surfaces. Maybe a prosecutor, reviewing a stack of cold files, decides yours is worth pursuing seriously after all. Maybe you get connected, even loosely, to something bigger than the original charge, and suddenly the warrant that's been sitting quietly in a drawer for months isn't sitting there anymore. It gets flagged for active pursuit. A detective, or sometimes a whole small unit, gets formally assigned your file. This is not the U.S. Marshals yet. This is local, patient, unglamorous police work, the kind that never makes it into a trailer. Pulling your last known address, your last known employer, your vehicle registration, your known associates, your family members, cross-referencing all of it against anything that's come in recently. They talk to your landlord, watching for the hesitation before he says he hasn't seen you. They talk to your ex, who may or may not want to protect you anymore. They talk to the guy at the gas station you used to buy cigarettes from every Tuesday, because patterns, not chases, are the first thing that get people caught. Routine is the thing you can't fully shake even when you're trying desperately to. Your family starts getting visits. Uncomfortable ones. An officer stands on your mother's porch asking if she's heard from you, watching her face closely for the flicker of a lie she's not practiced enough to hide. Your friends start getting calls, some official, from real detectives running down leads, some not, from people claiming to be old coworkers or mutual friends who are actually skip tracers working a bounty for the bond company that's out real money on your case. You don't know any of this is happening. That's the entire point of how this stage works. The investigation runs quietly, methodically, in the background of a dozen other people's days, while you're still convinced you've simply vanished, that no one's really looking, that the world moved on the moment you stopped showing up. Public records, the boring kind, become the first real crack in your disappearance. A vehicle registration renewal you forgot about. A parking ticket issued to a car still sitting in your name, a utility bill someone else set up on your behalf, unknowingly linking your new address to your old identity in a system that doesn't care how careful you think you've been. You haven't vanished, you've just stopped being visible to yourself, which is a very different thing from actually being gone. Detectives at this stage are building patience more than evidence. They know most fugitives eventually make one predictable move: contacting a parent, returning to a familiar neighborhood, reaching out to an ex when things get lonely enough. They're not sprinting toward you. They're simply waiting for you to be human, because sooner or later, almost everyone is. Level 4, the marked. This is the rank where the story most people picture when they hear the word fugitive actually begins. If the underlying crime is serious enough, a violent felony, a major drug trafficking case, an escape from custody, a credible threat to public safety, the file gets referred upward. Or if you've simply been in the wind long enough that local resources can't reasonably close the case out on their own, it moves up the chain too, to a joint fugitive task force. Often, that means the U.S. Marshals Service, the federal agency that has led fugitive investigations in this country since 1789 and now clears roughly 90,000 warrants a year through coordinated regional task forces built specifically for this work. This changes everything about how you're being hunted, immediately and permanently. A dedicated deputy, sometimes a whole rotating team, pulls your entire digital shadow into one file, financial records, showing every card, every account, every transfer. Cell phone metadata, not the contents of your calls, but the cell towers your phone pinged and exactly when, painting a rough map of your movement over weeks without anyone needing to read a single message. Social media, even the account you thought was private, even the throwaway one under a fake name, because writing style, photo backgrounds, shared jokes, and mutual friends give people away constantly, more reliably than most fugitives ever expect. They build what investigators call a pattern of life profile, where you likely sleep, where you likely eat, who you still talk to despite everything, what time of day you're most predictable and least alert. Skip tracers, some private contractors, some working directly for the bond company that's out real money if you never show up. Start chasing every lead tied to whoever posted your bail. Your face goes up on a regional most wanted list, sometimes with a cash reward attached, turning strangers into potential tipsters. You are no longer hiding from a piece of paper. You are being actively, professionally hunted by people whose entire career is finding people exactly like you. People who close the overwhelming majority of the cases they're assigned, because that is, quite literally, the only job they have. They don't need to find you today. They don't need to find you this week. The file doesn't expire, the assignment doesn't get bored, and the deputy working your case has a dozen other files just like it moving forward on their own timelines. Time, the one thing you thought was working in your favor, has quietly become the tool working against you the hardest. Level 5, the hunted. The net tightens in ways you can feel even before you can name exactly what's changed. A car you don't recognize sits parked on your block for 2 days too many, in a spot that doesn't quite make sense for anyone who actually lives there. A text from an old friend feels different, off, a little too eager to know exactly where you're staying tonight. You start changing locations every few nights, cycling through favors from people you're rapidly running out of, running low on anyone still willing to risk their own freedom for yours. Behind the scenes, invisible to you, the task force is closing in through the oldest and most effective method in the entire history of manhunts. Informants, someone you trusted, a former partner, a friend under their own separate legal pressure, a cellmate from a past arrest looking to trade information for leniency, gives up your general location in exchange for a lighter deal on their own case. This happens more often, by a wide margin, than any dramatic stakeout or high-tech surveillance operation you've seen in a movie. Most fugitives aren't tracked down through clever detective work. They're given up by someone close to them. Surveillance tightens around every confirmed or suspected location. Deputies watch for patterns rather than single moments, waiting for the highest probability window to move. Early morning, when you're groggy, half-dressed, least likely to run, most likely to be exactly where the file says you'll be, a tactical plan gets built with real precision. Entry points get mapped, likely escape routes get covered before anyone knocks. Whether you're believed to be armed factors into every decision. Whether children or other bystanders might be present shapes the timing down to the minute. Every fugitive arrest, underneath the calm procedural language you'll read about it later, is a carefully engineered moment designed from the ground up to end with as little violence as humanly possible. You don't know the exact morning it's coming, but somewhere, on a whiteboard or a briefing sheet, it's already been chosen. The last stretch of freedom, if you can even call it that anymore, rarely feels dramatic from the inside. It feels like exhaustion, like running out of couches to sleep on and people willing to lie for you, like realizing, somewhere underneath the fear, that a part of you almost wants it to just be over. Level 6, the cornered. It usually isn't cinematic. It's a traffic stop for a broken taillight that runs your plate and flags a hit before the officers even walked back to your window. It's a knock at 5 a.m. While you're still half asleep, deputies already positioned at every exit before the first knuckle even hits the door, before you've fully understood what the sound means. It's a raid on the address an informant gave up, executed with a speed and coordination that makes resistance feel almost pointless before you've even processed what's happening around you. Your hands go up, or they go behind your back, whichever comes first, whichever your body decides on its own without asking your permission. The words are the same ones you've heard in every crime show your whole life, except now they're not background noise on a television, they're addressed directly to you. in your own doorway or your own driver's seat, and they land completely differently than you ever imagined they would. The chase, if there ever was one, is over in minutes. The hiding, the version of your life that lasted weeks or months or sometimes years, is over in seconds, collapsing all at once the way things do when they've actually been ending. Slowly, the entire time. There's no music here, no slow motion, none of the drama the word manhunt promises. Just the specific flat quiet of handcuffs and the strange, almost physical relief of not having to run anymore, even underneath everything else you're feeling. Level 7. The caught. Booking. Fingerprints, one finger at a time, rolled and pressed. A photo taken against a height chart you've seen 1,000 times in movies and never once from this side of the camera. Court appearances stack up again, this time ones you absolutely cannot skip, ones with deputies standing close enough to remove any question of choice. The original charge is still sitting there waiting, but now there's an additional one beside it. Failure to appear, sometimes bail jumping, sometimes obstruction, depending on how far you ran and how much time and money it took to bring you back in. Judges do not look kindly on flight. It rarely reads as fear to them. It reads as a decision, and sentences reflect exactly that. Here's the truth nobody tells you at the start of any of this. The overwhelming majority of fugitives get caught, not most, in the loose way people use that word. The overwhelming majority track down through some combination of patience, data, and someone close to them eventually talking. The U.S. Marshals Service alone closes tens of thousands of warrants every single year. And that number doesn't even count the state and local task forces doing the same grinding, patient, unglamorous work in parallel, city by city, warrant by warrant. The system isn't fast. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't need to be either of those things because it's relentless, built by people who have all the time in the world and a name in a database that never, ever stops being searchable. For the people who catch these cases, there's no glory in it, no headline, just another closed file on a stack of closed files. Another name checked off a board full of names. That's the part almost nobody pictures when they imagine running. How ordinary the ending actually is. How little ceremony there is on the other side of all that fear. You had one bad morning that turned into a warrant. It only takes one more to end it.